Hi, Annette.
Hi.
I see you. Thank you so much for being here, for taking time out, for being here with us and joining today's session. Let's start with a quick introduction. If you could tell our community about your background and how you got interested in the startup space and investing.
Right. So always been nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me to participate. I appreciate that a lot. I'm an early stage tech investor. Like you said, I've been investing for the past 30 plus years in deep tech companies, I would say, or hardware connected software. And this is something that I did together with I've been doing all the time with my husband, and we actually sold the company in '93, and then we moved to the US, to the East Coast, to deliver that kind of company. It was a collaboration with a bunch of Swedish companies and so forth. And we stayed in the US for 17 years. So at that point, obviously life happens, you stay, it's warm, why move back to Sweden? Because that's where I'm from, and so forth, because of all the snow and bad weather for 9 months. And then you have beautiful summers, of course. So that's sort of what started it. And then also because I like innovation in itself. I like innovation that transfers or transform anything that you can think of that you can go into the future with. So when the company we sold was in fax data, which is like super old, but it was really cool then. And there was a bubble, and there was an opportunity for us also to elaborate on the stuff that we've been doing for the past 30 years. And now innovation is, for me, sustainable future. So it's all about, and it's been so for the past, 20, 25 years also, thinking of the environment, understanding the shift, but it's really complicated to shift with only technology. So it needs funding to have those, nerdy ideas that actually can come into fruition, that actually does make a change. And for somehow not necessarily always are the big money givers, but still being a part of new innovation and being an opportunity to be on that sort of innovation experience and stage and company is really, really very fascinating and so forth. And I went back to California in 2016 and stayed there for a year and a half connected with Nordic Innovation House, and then the Wallenberg Foundation, together with Vinnova, which is an innovation agency in Sweden, for a year, learning stuff, in Palo Alto. It was interesting in Silicon Valley to be there for more than a year, and also not only go there for a weekend or a week to look and see what everybody's doing, but actually be there, sort of eat it and sleep it as well. So it was interesting and fun. And now I'm a venture partner with one of Nordic's innovation sustainable funding with Butterfly Ventures. This is their fourth fund. So we have a bunch of money that we're trying to distribute. So I'm looking for ventures that are in sustainable shift, but it needs to be science driven. So it actually needs to be research behind it. And a little bit deeper than just working out a SaaS platform and so forth, because that's other ones have to invest in that. We feel that the focus for us is to be in deep tech connected with any software, AI, robotics, whatever shift you can fix into a sustainable future. And the dirtier the industry, actually, it's helpful, because then we can do a better impact, which is the point, sort of.
Awesome. So your focus right now is technology, funding, environment, and science. So I think those are the four bubbles around which, and somewhere hardware as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's the fifth bubble.
Hardware, materials, and then we're not the first one to invest in batteries, but we like the ways that solutions are. So we want to have a market entry on the companies right now, and that's what we're focusing on. But materials and things like that as well. New ways of cleaning water we just invested in and so forth. So it's more of how can we make it more, not only affordable, but actually applicable into the industries and places where people actually are living and working and doing all the things that they need to do in a better sustainable way.
Awesome. I'll just pick one point which you mentioned a little while ago, that you were in US in 2016 for a year or more. So if we could just take a minute or so, or a couple of minutes, and because that's like a different ecosystem. And I also am involved in a lot of ecosystems which are US and Silicon Valley based. But I'd like to hear from you, what kind of similarities or differences do you see between Nordics and the ecosystem that's there in Silicon Valley when you were part of that project and you were earlier in US? Is there a difference? Is there a similarity when it comes to?
I mean, the money, I think, is very much different. It always seems to be another attitude of what innovation is, but not necessarily maybe the tenacity that we are looking for in ventures. It's one of the reasons when we sold our company in 93 was that nobody really understood what we were doing, back then. And in Sweden, and the conversation was always, anyone else done this before? And you go like, no, this is just new way of this was like e-commerce, but on fax. So it was like not that complicated. But it's still something that you have a threshold, I would say, not necessarily today, because it's like 2023, so a lot of things have happened. But I would say that the difference is that the market is so much bigger in the US than it is for the Nordic countries in itself. So we have to put our sort of future caps on and go like, okay, where is the actual market? Okay. Should I be big here in the Nordics or in Sweden, or should I expand? And which country then should I expand to? Should I go to China or India, or should I go, continue Europe, or should I go over to the US? So it's more of like we have another way of looking into business than the US market has to, because that market is big enough, and they have an opportunity to slim down the verticals. So you can be a specialist in a vertical. You can invest in only one vertical if you want to, or you can have an extremely narrow customer base of who would be your eventual buyers or users than you actually can in the Nordics. So it's like a whole different way. We tend to shoot sort of hail, where they can actually do a cannonball, or maybe not even, but more or maybe a missile, because they know exactly where the target audience is, and then they can drill down. And I feel that was the biggest takeaway from it, that I was became very envious of that market and how extremely narrow you could be. And we usually aren't that narrow not even in the European market in itself. And then one other thing that I felt was that maybe if ventures, depending on where the venture originates from, I mean, build your home base, your home market, understand where you are, but also understand that Earth is like an orange. So you have, every kind of wedge of orange that you peel off also represents sort of a district. And if you can be really, really smart in building that kind of district, it doesn't really matter where, just understand that. And then instead of sneaking over and stealing other countries' customers or other regions' customer, build your strong customer base, and then you always look into who is your competitor and understand the other wedges of that orange, and who could you sell to, or which company can you buy to expand your market, rather than doing all the freaking grunt work, moving in to that new region, become the new name, and nobody knows you, blah, blah, blah. It takes a lot of time and money and effort just to be there and doing that stuff. And understanding those wedges of where you are and you have your customers, and then buy the other one or sell to the other one. So if you have that goal from the beginning, I think you will be a smarter business, because it's so easy to say, oh, let's move to Berlin, or let's move to Frankfurt, or let's move to Paris, or wherever, because it's just in my sliver. Yeah, that is good, but the point is to build it smart also. So.
Very interesting point. So the difference in the size of the market, the money that you can raise or that can be put in venture capital, and then your analogy of wedges. I think Europe is quite big market, but then there are language differences, number one. Number two, geographies at times make scaling of technologies like health tech, like there are regulatory differences, even if we
Yeah,
are a
very.
single common market in
Mhm.
many aspects, but still there could be regulatory differences, or the way customer behavior shifts beyond borders when you move from one country to another country.
Absolutely. And I think that is underestimated also with a neighboring country, or, or if you would be in the US, a neighboring state or whatever, county in England, I don't know. But it's like there's always a different pattern when you come in. And it takes some time and skills actually to see that. It's easy to say that the US is an easy market because it's one language and it's dollars and so forth, and the same power in the wall and things like that. But it's such a huge difference from, the whole, from the coast to coast or just in the mid. I mean, it's super, super different. So it's, usually I think that when you're young and hungry, you underestimate the shift in the market. And then also look how we're doing business now after COVID than we did before COVID. It's a huge, also the market is very risky, and you have wars going on, and there's, always wars going on, sort of, but for us in Europe, it's very close by now than it's been before. And there are some other power shifts and so forth. So it is a different buyer perspective, and how you also, what you're making money on and why. And I'm not really sure if the stock market is going to be the same thing it's been, because it's like 200 years old system. So it needs to sort of go into something that is, it needs to be a next level of how we're doing and why we're doing business. So I hope that the smartness of the companies, and also, of course, the investors or the bankers, how you lend money and how you purchase and use the funds that you have, that becomes, that it shifts into a next level of what we actually are doing. It's not that you can't make money on sustainable investment, or that you can, but I think every idea has been done, and every vision has been scrutinized more or less more than one time. And I'm not saying that there's no idea and no reason for you to do anything, but you don't always have to look into it in a big scale for you guys, for anyone to be happy. It's also to create that company that becomes your, not your life, but your way of supporting yourself. And then we can come into the next level of conversation. What the heck is support? What is money or salary, or what, it
Very
becomes
interesting.
Complicated.
No. I'm loving the discussion. I think there are so many angles for a very deep debate on all these points. You obviously have a huge experience base when it comes to identifying startups, kind of supporting them and taking them 1, 2, or 3 stages forward. But you also are in different roles. So sometimes we know you sit on the board of We Don't Have Time, for example. So that's a board position. You are an active angel investor, and you're also a venture partner in a VC. So question here is, like, what's the difference between a VC and an angel investors? Are the stakes different? Are the funding ticket sizes different? Like, when you're sitting on that side of the table, are the two hats significantly different from each other when you are a VC versus an angel investor?
Yes and no, and
Okay.
yes again. It's like, of course they're different, because there is a fundraising going on the VC side. So there's been promises given of what we are investing in, and how much money people are going to get back in a time frame that is allotted and so forth. But on the angel side, if I'm an independent investor angel, that I've been, and then also participated in groups as an angel investor, it starts with how much money can I sort of put into this and not get back. Because angel investing is so much, in my perspective, with the amounts that I've been putting in, it is so early. So usually there is probably not a market, or there is maybe someone who would be interested in looking into it. There are collaborations, because I always want the newer ventures to have someone that would be a customer, at least, to develop together with. Otherwise, it's really complicated. but the amounts and the money and so forth is different depending on how big of a ticket you're wanting, but it's also the opportunity as an angel investor, an early stage investor, is that you actually come in and with some benefit of the doubt is that you actually will get those 10 times the funds that you put in and you can leave. But that's not necessarily the way that it goes right now, because it's so complicated to fundraise. It's complicated to get the business going, and there is a rush in the industry of technology to make so much more, work so much faster, gaining results so much quicker, producing products or solutions and so forth that doesn't really exist, but you're trying to sell them anyway. So it becomes more complicated to see that there is an exit, because there's a lot of money spent and no money coming into the company, and so forth. And if you look in all kinds of convertibles that we are investing in right now, and not in equity, it becomes also you become very diluted very quickly, rather than building value, because there's a promise. It's sort of borrowing funds and so forth. So I think I'm less interested in investing in early stage companies right now, because I don't see anywhere where I can actually do a change. If I don't come in super early in materials, for example, a new kind of way of plastic solution, or a new way of using, but they're working with Tetra Pak, for example. Usually when they have that collaboration, they are so far along. So my money doesn't make any sense then, because they get also company funding, and they get the company funding from Vinnova. So I think that, or other institutions that we have in Sweden or the Nordics. So I feel that the opportunities now, you need to really build collaboration, be really clear of what you want to do, and then understanding what your exit would be out of such a company. So let's say that I've invested maybe, I don't even know, maybe €1 million or something like that in early companies. And I probably received maybe €200,000 back. So it's like, it's a very expensive learning experience, but it's also something that I had an opportunity to participate in, and I have grown businesses into a certain level, but not necessarily have an exit out of it. So everything takes so much longer than it actually should do to build these companies. So it's more of like, we have a saying in Sweden that you shouldn't, grab for more than you can actually swallow. And I think there is an international other wording, but something like that. So it's like, if you reach too far, it's in the end, it's going to bite you in the back, because you can't really deliver on the opportunities. So build smarter companies, build companies that actually are supporting the people that are working with the ideas and so forth. So you actually are a business owner rather than a woohoo startup entrepreneur. So you actually have that, you see a vision further on than 5 years, because usual startup, they have maybe 3 years as they're looking into what they're going to do, but you're not going to build a company in 3 years. There's no way.
Got it. From the startup founders side, let's say, what would be the difference that they usually see in VCs? Is it that it's angel, like when you are building your startup, is it a must-have that you need to go through first an accelerator stage, then an angel stage, then a VC stage, or can you skip a few steps? How should startups in the current situation approach funding? Where can they find more how would you say, welcoming doors or possibilities to connect? Is it
as soon as you start making money, and you start making money, and you can see that there is a shift in customer purchase or in collaboration purchase or whatever, not the POC, then the doors are opening. So as soon as you have revenue that is not, €100,000, but it's a little bit more. So you start to scale up in a bigger. VC can come in and they can assist you with that kind of growth money, because that's what it's all about. And also it depends on who you are working together with or who you're talking to, and what you are saying that this is going to happen, and then showcase that it actually happened. Because it's super easy to look in a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel spreadsheet with, this is what we want, yes, and then this is what happened. And then if you can then deliver on that sort of proposal that you have, then you all of a sudden go like, hey, they're actually working this. They actually understand how the response from, what the business feedback is, or what innovation feedback, or whatever it is. And sometimes this is also a challenge for VC and also for angels that have a little bit larger checkbook, that they can come in too late. So they actually are, that all of a sudden this company has grown into something bigger, and it's easier for them, or it makes more sense for them to actually use bank money. So they borrow money on the business that they actually have, because they have, something that works around in a good wheel. In the end, it's all about building a good company that are doing good things for a sustainable future, in my mind. Then are you going to find that CTO, or are you going to the next level CTO, or next level CFO, or step aside as a founder and become, have someone else that becomes your COO, for example? Yes, you will find that person if you have a company that actually is solid and valid. And then don't worry about all the other stuff around. I mean, you always say put 20% of your, and put 20% as an option book for any future employees that are important for you when you come aboard in the early stage. Yes, do that. And make sure that you actually are not fund yourself out of the company as well, because that can easily happen.
Yeah, very good point. Which goes back to, since we are discussing founders, like, and you have worked with several founders across several industries and initiatives that you're running.
Yeah.
What are the key qualities that you look for in a founder or a team when you are thinking about investing in a startup? What kind of makes it?
I mean, it's complicated to invest in a company that has one founder that is doing everything. So you need to have 4 key players in a group in itself. Someone that takes charge, sort of, is the entrepreneur of it. That could also be the innovator. You never know if you have those 2 in one person. Then you need to have a communicator, and you need to have an administrator. So whoever is doing this, if you have a team or 3 or 4 people, it's easy to say that you have technical knowledge, of course, because that's usually what the founders have, that they have the skills that needs to actually build this company, or if they have hired someone who has the skills to build anything. You can always redo software. You can always add on to the next level. So if you're not, if you have research and you have the innovation, usually you have built something, but you need to make sure that you have a team that actually speak with each other. So it's not just one person who's running the show and all the other ones are just, doing what that person says. That's easy to say for me. It's hard to actually find teams that are that compatible. But if at least you have 2 founders from the beginning that are in different roles, that are skilled in different ways we have one in communication administration and one that is an entrepreneur and technology person, then you know that they will actually be able to work together. And usually you see when you meet them, you understand if they're going to be a team, after a couple of times, if that's going to work. Because always we're talking to so many ventures that are coming in, startups, idea makers, all kinds of people that are coming in, and it's easy to have the idea, and it's rather easy to actually say that this is what we're going to build. But then when it becomes real and you actually are going to deliver this for someone to actually kick up their next level in their business, because that's the reason why they have, that you need to have skillful people, and usually those are the ones with heavy duty education or heavy duty experience. So not the youngest one, usually they are the hungriest one, of course, but it also needs to be someone that wants to put time into it. Not only that you need to work, long hours, that's sort of up to you, but that you have a lifespan everybody understands that life happens, and you can burn out, you have families, and you know, you have to move, or you have whatever, you know, someone needs to go to school somewhere else and so forth. And you can understand that, but we're actually putting a lot of money into this venture based on that you will be the engine, that the team will be the engine. So we need to we are actually looking more and more into backgrounds and so forth on the people, so we know that they will be able to sustain it, references and stuff like that. So
got it. Like, very interesting points. First, you said definitely not a single person, so it needs to be a diverse team, so that different roles can be filled up in a startup. And you also mentioned that they need to complement each other in a way that if I know something, the other person should know something more and different. But at the same time, we should also be compatible. Yes. It doesn't mean that like we know different things, we do different things with different experiences, but somewhere in the middle there should be the same value structure. Like we can all sit around the table and do this together. Yeah. So really good points, Annette, over there. The next point I thought would be that when you are making decisions, because you say that you go in super early in startups, and the markets are not very clear. Founders have probably just formed up and developed a product. How do you kind of assess? Is there a magic formula? Is there a gut feel? Like, how do you assess that this startup has the potential or scalability that you're looking for? How do you know that this could go big?
Like, I wish I knew. Okay. No, well, I mean, some of the entrepreneurs that I've invested in and the ideas I've invested in is that I felt that this is something that the market needs, or this is something that needs to be shifted. This is something that I believe in will actually be something. Maybe this will not be the super case for that big shift to happen, but it might be a stepping stone in how we can build those, you know, technology milestones. I think I say sometimes that you can actually put that a little bit further, so you can, even though this is not going to make, because I said, like, I've invested too much money and I received not that much money back, but it's also because I'm doing it the way that I want to do when I invest my own money in. That I believe that these people will be able to bring something forward, and this will actually be a shift and change. And if they're not going to be the ones, so maybe we can move the technology into another company, and there could be something else going on there. And you have to have, you know, ice in your stomach to be able to just sit down in that little boat and not be scared if it starts to rock, and then understand that business need to pivot. Okay. And you need to pivot because of innovation, other technology innovations that you come across, or that you need to be extremely focused on how the market is shifting and changing. It's not necessarily that, oh, what if they've done it in India already? Or what if they've done it, you know, in France already? That doesn't really matter, because it's more of like, we understand that you're not going to be first, but you need to be the best that you're doing or building or trying to convey in that manner. So it's more of like, how can I make sure that this person or this group will be the group that is moving it forward? I invested in sports clothing, which I never do, because I don't think that, you know, I should do anything in clothing, but it was because of the business idea in itself. I've been a long distance runner for many years. Okay. And I felt that the way that she was building the community in itself, not necessarily the clothes, yes, because they gave, you know, power to the women that was actually doing the running or the triathlons and stuff, that gave them that, if I can swim a little bit, maybe I could swim longer. I can run a little bit, like maybe I can run longer. And then you put it all together and it becomes sort of a group and a really big community of it. And I felt when I went into that investment that I'm not going to get this money back, but at least I can be there and support. And at least I can be like the king penguin that jumps first, because I feel that if I do it, people that will go with me, with the understanding, and of course that it's risky to invest in whatever you're investing in. And I still feel good about that, even though I haven't received my money back, and I probably will never do so either. But it's like
Awesome.
more like how can, and then also why would people love to see that plastic would be some that you will stop using plastic, which is my biggest thing, that we need to stop producing new plastic. We need to find other ways of
Yeah.
solutions to it and so forth. But it's hard for these companies also to fundraise, because are you saving the freaking cucumber or the Q-tips or the, what plastic things are there we need, and what is the plastic things that we absolutely don't need? We just do it for convenience, for example.
Okay.
So it's a lot of different things that I look into and I feel is important. But everybody should be on a plastic diet. And understand, thinking of like, how can I reduce my plastic in my own household, and then talk to the producers of like, why do we have this plastic, for example, whatever it is that you're on fire for. That should be sort of everyone's mission in the end.
Okay.
I think.
So that's one side, when we kind of have some sort of a gut feel or some sort of a market indicator. You said that there should be a need for something, and then the people who are actually building it should be passionate, should be best at it, because those are really the early stage indicators. But on the flip side, what are the red signals, for example, where you absolutely think that these are really no-go areas, these startups or this team is not worth it? Like, are there any red flags?
Well, the reddest flag is to not understand that you need to collaborate and work with customers, anyone who will be buying you. That I've been inventing this idea, and I've been working on it for 7 years in my little closet, in my little dungeon, and now I'm gonna, that sneak out and showcase it, and the world is gonna love it. And it's so few that actually will do anything with it. So you don't have a really plan on how to sell it. Not only marketing, if I build it, people will come. Well, that doesn't exist anymore almost. It's like really, really complicated. It, building Nutty Ventures and all this platform and everything. It is really, really hard work, but it's also understanding what the value is for the customer, and then reach out to the users or the ones that are participating and so forth with a clear message of, this is what I'm doing. I would like to collaborate with you. This is what we're trying to build. Why don't you come over here and assist us in building it together? So it's more if you don't have that plan. And then also if you feel that you don't need any other one to work together with, that you feel that you're a complete person yourself and you can do this alone. That is also not a red flag, but it's like, find people that you can work and collaborate with, and then get back to me, then we'll see.
Got it.
But I must say that I think that the best ones are the ones that have done several fails before, so they are not coming in completely brand new, or they have extremely good experience of being in companies where there were growth, and then they had to scale down, and then they grew again, and then they pivoted, and then where it actually is complicated depending on what your business are.
Understood.
And where they like, when any company that lacks sales, because that's what's going to bring the money into your company. So you need to have someone who's interested in selling and not just inventing, which is in my field really complicated, because I'm just doing, research stuff, and it's really, really nerdy people doing nerdy things. So
got it.
It is,
got it. Really good points. Like, this discussion is so rich and so interesting, I think, for our community. Let's switch to kind of more of a personal journey on your side, or the way you work, and then from that you could probably also tell us, like, usually how investors work. But in your case, when you're working with startups, you invest in them, what level of depth do you go into a startup? And what is generally the market practice, and how do you work with
on an
startups?
angel side? Usually you think that you probably need to go into a company with around 100,000 euros, but you can do it in tranches. So you do 25, and then you add 25, and then you wait if you need to add anything more, and then you can add some more money. Usually I I've done in the future, I've usually put in about 50, and then
Okay.
hoping also to be of service, so I can actually
Okay.
kind of, invoice it back a little bit or something like that. So it's also, I see it as a business case, because I don't just want to go in and put in money. And usually I have to put in money to a venture to be able to work with them, so they understand what I can deliver. Usually I work with sales and marketing and so forth, and communication. So finding the customer, introducing to my network and so forth. And then that will in the end then give me some funding back. So it's not only that I'm pouring out money, I'm hoping also to get some payment for the work that I'm doing, because we're actually gaining business, or we're gaining, market, or whatever it is that I add value. So I work to sort of pay to play, or pay to work, or something like that. That's usually how I do it, but that's on an angel side, and I'm probably not doing it like others are, because I think there's a lot of people that wants to work in the company and gain percentages because they're working, and I can do so as well. But I usually feel that the commitment from me, with funding first and then working together, and then adding whatever funds in which way it needs to be done and so forth. That's because my role is that I have connections, or I have company friends and VCs that I know, and I know what they invest in. So I know this is now the timing is this. You need to do these 2 or 3 tranches before you can actually go and ask them for funding, because otherwise they can't invest because the ticket is too small, or you don't have any revenue and so forth. And they go like, no, but I can go there and talk to them. They told me to reconnect, but you're not going to get any funds until you actually have that million in revenue. That's when they are going to invest, and then they're going to demand you to have it, maybe 1 million more users, or 50 more customers, or whatever. Otherwise they're not going to go in and invest. So it's always there's a tick-off thing. So everyone who's listening to this and then also going into venture or into VC looking for funding and so forth, jot down what the companies you're meeting. It doesn't matter if you're 120 meetings, in a year or a day or a week or whatever. It's what is actually said during that meeting that you need to listen to. What are their criteria? Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Building relationship, yes, that's good. But you also have your investors that should be building their relationship, and they should be able to ship you in, like the top of the cake, being the cherry of it, rather than just being the pasting or whatever.
Okay. Awesome. I think that really answers 2 questions for us. In fact, like how do you financially go in, but also like what level of commitment you bring, or the depth of experience that you can share with the startups that you are working with. You already answered one point, or kind of mentioned one point in the start of our discussion, which was that you should, as a startup, look for building a company, a business, and building revenue very fast.
Yeah.
In terms of attracting funding, are we saying that if your company is not, you don't have a revenue, you should not seek funding? Or could there be an exception to this?
I think it's complicated, but if you're an angel, if you're looking for, smart money, angel money and so forth, for them to help you to actually gain business and so forth, or participate in your business development and so forth, you're asking for it. And then when you receive the funds, you also need to be able to both listen and then also to deliver. Otherwise, there's not going to be this group dynamic, because the due diligence period is almost like dating, before you're getting decided if you're going to get married or not. And then in this case, you usually say, it's going to take 7 years. Okay, so we have a full divorce after 7 years. That sounds awesome. Then I'm out of the relationship and you can move on and you can build it with other ones. That's very seldom happens on the date that it's said, but still it needs to be handled and maneuvered in a very business professional way. And feelings should be there and situations should be there. But if you have a board of directors, for example, that board needs to be put together with people that actually are in the business field where you are in, or you are interested in helping you building your company into the future, because they're not going to want your reporting, on what all the figures. It's more of using them in an early company as a sounding board. To people that you can trust. You can call me on a Friday night when you can't, get your stuff together, and you go like, Anette, what the heck is happening? Am I insane, or is this something that? And then I try to talk people down, and then usually that's my role. Especially as a chairwoman, where I'm in a couple of companies where they actually call me and just do that. We have these conversation, and I said, does this sound right? Or can you call this person and ask this and this, and then I'll do it. And talk about how we can move that venture into the future, but also the people in itself, they also need to grow. It's not only the company that needs to grow or the revenue that needs to be bigger. It's also taking time to understand who you're working together with, and that you enjoy, working together with the founders that you invested in, especially if you're on a board, because it's not time consuming, but it's, still a worry. It's like having a kid that you always want to call and say, are you doing okay? What's happening? How's it going? And so not only the board meetings. So
got it. One last question I was thinking we could, so thank you so much for such an insightful, deep and broad discussion today. From your investments that you have made or the startups that you are supported, is there any one that stands out in terms of where you have enjoyed the most? You may not want to mention the name, but you can mention the industry, because we maybe our community would like to know, like, what kind of investment or startup journey has really made you happy over time.
Right. Well, I mean, you already mentioned we don't have time, and I think that's the venture that have made me, I don't know if I'm most happy, but in awe of entrepreneurs that are fantastic. Never seen the tenacity and the hard work, and then also the humility and openness of shifting and so forth. Shifting into something that we today feel is really, really normal. We're talking about a platform for environmental climate action communication, just to understand what companies actually are doing. And they're leveling up every time when we speak or when we meet. They go like, wait, we're thinking about this, but now when we have asked the market, we see that this is probably what we need to do instead. The openness of spending time and innovation into a futuristic kind of fusion, working together with UN today and their development group, Al Gore, all the different environmental sort of larger the COPs and everything, just to make sure that we are moving forward and doing shifts and changes in how we look into the environment. When we started in 2017, it was a napkin product. The first product that we did, they didn't know how it would fly. It was, I love the commercial that they have, because it was a carbon bomb that we were shifting over to people that they didn't do good things, which is not really good. But it was like that, the whole way of wanting to communicate and sort of rattle the cage and scream to everyone, wake up. We need to do something. Earth is burning and we need to fix stuff. They are still one of the best ventures that I've been working with, even though if they don't always come up with the right numbers or we don't follow the right numbers, but all of a sudden we have the customers that we said that we would have. All of a sudden we have the users that we said that we would have, maybe a couple of years earlier, but still. And it's a fun company because it's different, and I do not invest in SaaS platforms. There's a lot of technology in this though, but no hardware, of course. But it's also a way of shifting in how you measure a company's, and this is the next 2.0 edition, is how you actually see the carbon footprint on all the stock traded companies. Of what are they actually stating that they're doing in their yearly annual report on, and how is that reported towards their market price. So it's a really interesting product now. It become more more business financial information rather than the ones that we said that we have no plastic in our food, or we have ocean plastic that we're using in our whatever polyene or whatever it is that we're doing. So that's a fun company. Also the security company, Cover Security, very interesting. Lived in Thailand for a while with them together when we were working together with the Bangkok Bank as a customer on security base. It's taken forever. Any company would die with no money, it's using all the other business scopes and so forth. And now we're rolling this out, and it's, fantastic, and it's brilliant of how they're doing it. But it's not easy, and it's always fundraising, and it's always trying to find customers to pay that next bill and so forth. And I don't want anyone to have this kind of feeling that you're almost sinking, but you're not. But that sort of is what is happening when you want to shift technology and you want to shift it into the next part of the next that technology milestone that is going to needs to be put further down, away from where we are, and we are going to feel uncomfortable as we felt in the beginning of being, in a conversation like this, not having a real fireside chat, but actually being on Zoom. I mean, prior to COVID, this is not really something that we have been convenient with, because then we go like, hey, I can't sit there and chat with you if you're not in the same room.
I didn't know about Zoom. Like we used to have something Skype. It never used to work because it was linked to one of my other accounts, which is a Microsoft account, and it didn't work. No. So I was always having this, but you could probably call a telephone call. So it was a completely different environment. Yes. And suddenly when Zoom came in, and I remember I was doing a lot of government sector advisory work at that time. For the first 2-3 months, there was a lot of fumbles, like people, the technology adoption. And Zoom itself had issues, like people just coming in, showing video and doing this. But then it massively changed in 6 months through COVID. And I think we have become so good at video meetings and using all, maybe the core processes of business can run, and especially in digital enterprises. Of course, the human touch-based businesses would still need that, but digital businesses where core technologies can be run, or office processes, Zoom works, or Teams or other whatever, very.
Well, it's a whole different perspective, but we needed to have something as horrific as COVID to get in for us to take that, to dare to take that technology lead. Move technology into schools. I think that Africa actually had it quicker than we did here in Europe, or whatever world we're calling it, because we had to go all the technology staircase. We had to take, the really large desktops, and then moving into next, they just moved over to a mobile, and they go like, I don't care. We can have whatever smartphone is available. We'll just fix that on that. We're still sort of a little bit in the stationary mode, I believe, but we're still sitting in front of our own computer in our own, home or work or whatever we are. So I think, but it's shift is complicated, and shift is complicated with everything. And I did a comparison, and I got some feedback on that comparison when I said, understand that fossil fuel is like an old fat TV, the one that are the big TV. You need to transform into new technology, not necessarily electric cars, but not fossil fuel driven car. There's carbon. You can do on other stuff that you can do it, but move away from the old ways, because it's so dirty and it actually is not helping our environment. We need to move forward into new technology. And the response was like, no, we need to have fat TVs, because otherwise I can't play my old games. And I'm like, that's not the point.
Got it.
So it's always complex. It's always going to be, 15% of Earth people are going to move forward, and are the ones that really like to test new technology or leaning forward into moving into the future. But then we have the rest, the 85% that are clinging back, not only because they're old fashioned, it's also because money is involved in it. Businesses are making money and salaries for people and so forth. So it's not as easy to shift into new technology and just let all the other stuff go. But it is an interesting period when you actually can you can leap a couple of steps ahead of you, rather than just sitting back and say, I'm not going to change because I like flying to the sun, and I like eating my beef, and I like to have my fossil driven car, and I'm not going to change. I've been doing, so it's, I don't know how long it will take.
I think right on the point what you're saying. I think our behaviors, our values, they need to be kind of, I think it's how politics is structured. Sometimes these large shifts in behavior, like I always think that somehow younger generation needs to have much more voice. Women need to have much more voice, because that would drastically change the kind of technologies and the values that we believe in. Like, do we need a war or not? Can there be a better way of settling arguments, for example?
Exactly.
It's an argument.
It's like war is not the solution of arguing. It's like fist fighting.
Exactly.
You don't choose that. You choose your words. We teach that to our kids.
Exactly.
No, and we had a conversation. A feministic party side of the middle party here in Sweden, where I work also with and together with. And I said to them, don't say that, why do women only get 1% of the VC funding? I said, why does 99% of all the men need other people's money to run their companies?
Very good point. Very good point, Annette. Annette, thank you so much for taking this time today and being here on our inaugural. It's our first session that we are doing, Nutty Venture session. So we are very thankful that you could be our first guest of honor.
I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.